Welcome everybody to the workshop tonight. Thank you guys all for coming. We got a full house. Ironically, every time we start talking about fat, we get a full house. It might be the state of our nation, right? So, but luckily, most of you guys are looking good. So we don't have a full house of dramatically overweight people, so that's good. So this topic is excellent because honestly, it doesn't just entail being overweight. I'm telling you, this is affecting everybody. This is affecting skinny people and larger people all alike. We just say fat to make you show up, right? So bulging bellies, what clogs your pipes and make you fat. This is just such a critical topic because it's everywhere. It's unavoidable. And so we're going to be having a little bit of fun tonight. We're going to be burning some Twinkies later, literally, and doing some other fun things as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I want to start with this topic. What is food? Okay, have you ever thought about this question? What is food? What constitutes food? So the first question, is it because it's edible? I mean, think about some of the things that people consider food because it's edible, right? I mean, you can eat bugs, you can eat rats, you can eat bats. I mean, you could probably, they add wood into cheese, right? You guys know that they use powdered wood, fiber from wood to make cheese not stick to each other, and shredded cheese from most of the major brands. Yeah, they use wood pulp to keep it from clumping. So is the idea just because you can put it in your mouth and chew it, right? Is it because it's digestible? I mean, you can digest scorpions, and I think those are silkworm pods. Does that mean that it's food? Right? I mean, you can probably somewhat, in some way or shape, break down toilet paper. I mean, does that mean that's food? Right? Is it because it's palatable? I mean, come on, toilet paper doesn't taste very good, right? I've never tried it. But some things people say, oh, that tastes good. Other things, they don't think it tastes good. Somebody may not consider zucchini food because they don't like the taste of it. So the question, you get what I'm saying, is what is food? Have you really ever stopped and thought about that? Like, what do you consider food? And what I'm proposing to you is that culturally, we think of food within the context of our culture, do we not? Meaning that you go to a different culture and you see this stuff all over the place. It's everywhere. We look at this here and we're like, who would eat that stuff? I mean, rats or squirrels that are laid out, or dogs that have just been barbecued. In other countries, they eat that stuff all the time. We look at that. You never would expect to see that on a menu, right? But then I'm sure other cultures would see the same thing if they saw us eating raw oysters and would be like, oh, what the heck is that slimy, disgusting thing, right? So I think food is really much more a cultural thing than really a defined position. So, but this is the Wikipedia definition of food. Okay, it's any nutritious substance that people or animals eat or drink, or that plants absorb in order to maintain life and growth. Okay, that's a pretty wide definition. I'm going to propose, at least for me, I follow a different definition of food. If you get on the YouTube channel and you watch the workshop that's called the Owner's Manual, you'll see what I consider the definition of food, and that's what the Bible describes as food. So I think there's definitely a construct and a context of what is food and what is not food. That's my personal preference, but I think we need to think about this and what really is food, because that really kind of alters and changes the way that you eat, and the way that we should be eating, and what's healthy and what's not, because we're eating a lot of stuff that is not food. That's what I'm getting at. And that's kind of going to be the basis of everything that we talk about tonight. Okay, so let's talk about the physiology of food. How does food actually digest or not digest through your system? Okay, so we're going to talk about fats. Fats are degraded into fatty acids and glycerol. Pancreatic lipase, that's an enzyme that's of course secreted by your pancreas right here. So, food goes down. Of course, after chewing and saliva starts to break down and mastication starts to break everything down. Then it goes down into the stomach. And then the first place that it dumps from, the pancreas dumps in all these enzymes to start and begin the processing of fats. Okay, and that's done through pancreatic lipase. Lipase, of course, ACE is a term for enzymes, and lip is like lip is the term for fats. So it breaks down fats. Okay, so lipase breaks down triglycerides into free fatty acids and monoglycerides. Pancreatic lipase works with the help of the salts from the bile secreted by the liver. Okay, so the liver sends bile salts down here, and they get stored, of course, in the gallbladder if you have one. Right? That's important. How many people, I'm not going to show a raise of hands, but how many people do you think on average are missing their gallbladder? And I'll tell you, it's a lot more people than are missing a finger or a toe, right? A lot of people are missing their gallbladders. That's got to be a big question. Why? I mean, if you looked around and let's say 20% of this room was missing a finger, what would you think? What would you say there's probably a problem? You'd walk into the culture and you'd be like, do like all you guys work in a wood mill? Or, like what's going on? Why is everybody around missing fingers? We would catch that. But you can't see the gallbladder, right? You can't see that it's missing. It's kind of like how many women have had hysterectomies. And you start asking that question around and you realize, oh my gosh, like 30% of postmenopausal women or something like that are missing their internal organs. Why is that? That's a problem. I get into this topic a lot. That isn't it funny how our culture sees missing parts? Okay, if you had to go and let's say you had an infection or a big splinter or something like that on your finger, and the doctor said, that's a really bad infection. We need to remove your finger. How much would you fight with that doctor to maintain your finger? I mean, you'd like do anything. Anything. So, we start, oh my gosh, I'm going to go without a finger. I'm only going to have 9 left, right? But when it's our gallbladder, oh, I got some stones in there? Oh yeah, okay. Take it out. Am I going to see it? Nope. You won't even see the scar. Oh, great. As long as I don't see a scar. Right? That's the way that we handle it. Now we're missing internal parts. But what my point is there is that we do so much based on what we can see, and we don't think about it beyond that. It's like as long as I can't see that part missing, then it's okay. How wrong is that thinking? We'd let our gallbladder go before we let a finger go, and we only got one of those. It's mind-boggling when you really stop and think about it. So the pancreatic lipase, it goes in, the salts from the gallbladder, they attach to the triglycerides to help emulsify them. That basically fluffens them up so that the enzymes can start to more effectively break it down. Okay, then it aids emulsify them, which aids access by pancreatic lipase. This occurs because the lipase is water soluble, but the fatty triglycerides are hydrophobic and tend to orient towards each other and away from the watery intestinal surroundings. So that's the same thing, oil and water don't mix. So if you take a glass of water and you pour some olive oil in there, it's just going to bubble up, and it's going to collect in one spot, and it's going to sit in that water. But if you emulsify it, then it all breaks down, okay? And it all turns into this, basically looks like milk, okay? That's what happens with, you guys, how many in here have a coffee in their hands, right? That's what happens with espresso. that foam head is the emulsification of the oils from the coffee. Pretty interesting, right? But so delicious. Okay. The bile salts emulsify the triglycerides in the watery surroundings until the lipase can break them into smaller components that are able to enter the villi for absorption. So think about this now. If all those parts are important in processing oils and fats that are in your diet, whether they're good fats or bad fats, okay, you have to have multiple things happen. You have to have proper digestion in the first place. It has to be edible and digestible and everything else. But then your pancreas has to be functioning, meaning that it's able to produce the proper amounts of pancreatic lipase. How many people have pancreas dysfunction because of too much sugar in their diet? Just about everybody, right? We have all kinds of issues because we have so much sugar in our diet. Look at how many people are diabetic or pre-diabetic in this country. So you know your pancreas is already under functioning. Okay? Then you have to have a proper functioning gallbladder too, because if you consume a large amount of fats, and what you think is a large amount of fat is really, we're way overdoing it. I mean, we're getting more difficult fats than we're supposed to. So our gallbladder, why does it get stones? Why does it get all sludged up and everything? That's because of the overwork of the system. It's being abused. Okay, so it's when it just is constantly purging, dealing with all this fat, it just wears out quicker, like tires on your car. Okay, so now you don't even have a gallbladder to store those bile salts. Now you're completely relying on just that little bit of bile that's being poured out of the liver in that moment. Okay, so you eat a big high-fat meal, and just whatever happens to trickle out there, since you don't have this storage there to dump in, that's all that's coming in there to be affecting that. So now what happens to fat? It doesn't get digested, and it just goes straight through. Okay? So it's a lot of processes that have to happen, and that's all just pre-digestion. That doesn't even touch the rest of this down here. So now we go a little bit further. Digested food is now able to pass into the blood vessels in the wall of the intestine through either diffusion or active transport. The small intestine is the site where most of the nutrients from ingested food are absorbed. The inner wall or mucosa of the small intestine is lined with simple columnar epithelial tissue. Structurally, the mucosa is covered in wrinkles or folds called plicae circularis. Okay, so that's these folds here that you see in the intestines. And those are there to increase surface area. Okay, they're considered permanent features on the wall of the organ. They are distinct from rugae, which are considered non-permanent, temporary, allowing for distension and contraction. That's what's in the stomach. The folds, as your stomach shrinks, it branches into rugae, and then when you fill it up, it expands out. So they fold and unfold. Okay, from the plicae circularis project microscopic finger-like pieces of tissue called villi. Now, these are microscopic in themselves. Okay, so these are these little fingers that cover the inside wall of all those plicae. Okay, so you've got big folds, then you've got these fingers creating even more little folds. Okay, from there, that's a Latin term for shaggy hair. The individual epithelial cells also have finger-like projections known as microvilli. So you've got the plica circularis, then you've got villi, then you've got those covered by microvilli. Okay, all of this is to dramatically increase surface area. That's the whole point, is to increase surface area. Okay, the function of the plicae circularis, the villi and the microvilli, are to increase the amount of surface area available for the absorption of nutrients. Keyword there, absorption of nutrients, right? And to limit the loss of said nutrients to intestinal fauna. Okay, so you get all that you've got basically this very, very fine, detailed portion, tract all throughout your intestines that's there, that has to stay clean, this brush border to stay clean. Now, who in here has ever painted a house? Okay? What happens when you don't clean the paintbrushes out right away? All the bristles stick together, and how good can you paint the walls after that? And have you ever tried to clean a paintbrush after that's happened?
Yes.
I lost so many, when we painted our house, I lost so many brushes. I mean, I spent hours trying to get, all to do what, save $5 on a brush. And finally you're like, this is stupid, and you just throw it away, and you start over. Because if those oils just clump up on there, it's over, it's done with. So you have to constantly be going back and cleaning your brush, like every hour. Just get everything out of there before it solidifies, before it oxidizes onto your brush. Okay, so keep all that in mind. Okay, so the microvilli. This is a microscope, actually a carbon microscope view of the microvilli. Okay, so these are individual cells. Pretty cool stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable the technology that's built in here. That's unreal. Microvilli function as a primary surface of nutrient absorption in the GI tract. Because of this vital function, the microvilli membrane is packed with enzymes that aid the breakdown of complex nutrients into simple compounds that are more easily absorbed. For example, enzymes that digest carbohydrates called glycosidases are present at high concentrations on the surface of the enterocyte microvilli. Thus, microvilli not only increase the cellular surface area for absorption, they also increase the number of digestive enzymes that can be present on the cell surface. Microvilli are approximately 100 nanometers in diameter, and their length varies from approximately 100 to 2,000 nanometers in length. I mean, that's tiny. This is like bactericide. I mean, these are single cells. So you think about that. That's what does the absorption in your body, is these little tiny 100 by 2,000 nanometer cells that are required to be function normally in order for you to get all those vitamins that you take and all the good food that you put into your system to make it processable. And you've got what, the average person is something like, anywhere between 5 and 15 meters of intestinal tract. A lot of that depending on height and age and all that. So, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, but we take this for granted, do we not? Because we're not thinking about what is food. Okay, so we're putting all this stuff in. One of the things that comes into mind, is have you guys seen the trucks driving around town, the modular water trucks? What's their phrase that they say on the side of the trucks? Does anybody know? I'll give you the front. Well, go ahead.
It's easy to be ungreasy.
Yes! Somebody got it. I wish I had a cookie to give you. Non-hydrogenated oil cookie. It's easy to be ungreasy, right? Because what does the sewer system know is the biggest headache?
The oil being poured down the drain and clogging the pipes.
People taking the stuff that they're cooking your food in and pouring it down, and what happens to the drains? It clogs them all up. Okay, and this is PVC pipes. This isn't brush border. Totally different, but it still clogs up those pipes. And so, hey, money's on the line, we're going to pay attention. So we pay attention to the pipes under the ground better than we do the pipes in our bodies. But it's the same stuff being poured into those pipes. The difference is they probably clean and change those pipes, I guess every 15 years or so, probably at least. Yet, the average person, how often do we clean out our pipes? How often, what is the average age of an individual? We start to see where these problems come in. Now, thank God, I say this all the time, thank God that the human body is as robust and as forgiving as it is. Because the amount of abuse that we do to ourselves, we should be broken down a lot earlier. But that said, keep this in mind too. Okay, I believe it wholeheartedly when it says in the Bible that we should, that our years are limited to 120 years as a key of saying, you know what, you should probably be living to 100 to 120 years. And guess what? Science has validated that too. They say that we should be living on average 100 to 120 years. But what's the average age?
60.
It's, I think, 76, something like that. It's gone up. It's 76. So think about that. I mean, this is another one of those things we don't think about. I hate when I hear people say, well, I don't want to live to 100. What do you mean you don't want to live to 100? And the problem with that statement is they have a context in their mind of what living to 100 means. To them, living to 100 means, well, I'm going to be broken down at 70, so I'm going to have to spend 30 years dying. Well, that's a wrong context. That's a wrong way of thinking about things. So if we take care of ourselves and live to 100 and have a good life, then why the heck would you not want to live to 100? Okay? Think about this. From 80 to 100, how many years is that? Tough question, right? I'm bringing out the hard ones.
20.
Somebody? Anybody?
20.
She got the truck thing. 20. There you go. Okay, so 20 years. Think about everything that you did from age 0, from birth, until 20 years old. Was that a small span of time? I mean, would anybody in here be willing to voluntarily just eliminate from 20 years old to 40 years old everything that happened in your life? If we could just magically make it all disappear and you forgot the whole 20 years, would you want that to happen? No way. That's a huge span of time. So, why are we so willing to give up that 80 to 100? It doesn't make any sense. It's 20 years between 20 and 40 is the same as 20 years between 80 and 100. It makes no difference. It's just the context again. It's our context. It's what we build into it. It's, so I'm challenging you. Do what it takes to live to 100. I mean, that should be our goal. Okay. So what happens when we bypass physiology? This is a great American example of what happens when we bypass physiology. You guys remember seeing this? Is this still for sale? I'm sure it is. I remember seeing the big stands at Sam's Club when it first came out. Ally, this can be your ally in losing weight, right? We even name our kids after it. I'm just joking. So her daughter's name is Allie. So, Ally and Xenacol or Orlistat, okay? This is pancreatic lipase inhibitor. Okay, so without looking at all this stuff, what happens when you eliminate pancreatic lipase? Let's see if you guys remember what we just talked about on the last slide.
Fats don't break down.
Fats don't break down.
They go right
Okay, so what happens? They don't break down. They just
Go right through.
slide on through you. So what might those side effects look like? Okay, lipase inhibitors can cause side effects including oily spotting, fecal incontinence, flatus with discharge, and abdominal cramping. Okay, I'm not kidding you because I know I talked about this way back when we did a makeover at Mars Hill Church. I remember talking about this when it first came out because I was ripping on this new weight loss drug that everybody was talking about because it actually said on the label that we advise to bring an extra pair of pants with you in case you soil your first pair. That's the gist of it because it caused involuntary discharge. So they actually recommend you bring an extra pair of pants. So, unbelievable. And it's obvious, right? Because we're just blocking. Hey, but it makes you lose weight, right? Because you can't, I mean, it just goes straight through. Of course you're going to lose weight. The problem is you also cannot process essential fatty acids. EPA, DHA, so what happens? Your cells become dysfunctional. You open up the door for cancer and every other kind of dysfunction out there because every cell membrane in your body is made up by essential fatty acids, which are the nervous system of the cell. If those don't work, your whole nerve system doesn't work. And if that doesn't work, you're sick or dead. That's the end result. So this is, garbage. Okay, something is wrong. Okay? Irritable bowel syndrome. Okay? Irritable bowel syndrome, involuntary bowel disease, or inflammatory, I'm still stuck on ally. Inflammatory bowel disease, cortisol, increases in cortisol equals belly fat. These things, these are issues that we know are breakdowns of function. But when we look at all the stuff with irritable bowel syndrome, what do they tell you not to do? Don't eat peppers. Don't eat hot foods. Don't eat spicy things and stuff. all that is symptomatic. Of course, your intestines are going to be pissed off when you put hot stuff in them and they're already sore. That's like having, you got a scar on your arm, oh, let me put some peppers on it. You know, yeah, it might not hurt on regular skin, but if you got a cut on your arm, you're going to be crying. It's obvious. So that's the symptomatic approach to it. But it's way more than that. It's all the stuff that we're talking about here. So, of course, everybody recognizes this. I don't have to explain it. Probably for the YouTube people, we've got this company here that sells the South's apparent favorite food. What is that? Fried chicken. I'm sorry, but it drives me nuts that and this is kind of why I rip on it, that every time you drive by certain locations, you see it doesn't matter what time of day it is, 5 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, and they got a line like a mile long, and the store is this big. And it's like, how do they even fit that much chicken in the building? It's ridiculous. But this is people's favorite food. And if you're a Christian, you don't go to food cycles. Where do you go? Chick-fil-A. Somebody actually got that. Yeah, because they close on Sundays, right? So, hey, I'm supporting that. I'm somehow a better Christian because I eat Chick-fil-A. It's just. But chicken, fried chicken, we got to get away from the fried chicken. This stuff is like the worst. Can't fake the food. Okay, so we're going to talk about that now. Okay, you guys all of course recognize this guy. This is the infamous poo emoji that they even make pillows of now, and lots of children's toys. I even saw a cute plunger. Right? They have a plunger where this guy is on the bottom and with a stick coming out. It's like, that's actually a good idea. Yeah. That's kind of cute. I might buy one of those. But I named him. His name is Custard because, of course, nobody poops in the shape of ice cream. How would you even do that? And why is he so happy? So it's just weird. Nobody does this one. So now I'm going to go through the ones that people actually do. Okay, so I use this guy as a template to make all these other guys. I hope you guys, it may not be quite as refined, but close. Okay, this is Thing. You and hear us seeing the Fantastic Four, right? The rock monster, okay? He feels like a rock monster coming out, right? This, what is the problem? What is the problem with Thing? Dehydration, right? You're not keeping in your waters, your fluids. So when he gets to the end of digestion, because you're not drinking enough and you're eating things that are indigestible and you're clogging everything up, your large intestine sucks back in all the water, and then this thing angrily comes out. Right? So, he's identified by big, lumpy clumps that are all stuck together and come out like rocks. Sometimes individual rocks or sometimes one big clumpy rock. But either way, not fun. That's why he's angry. The next one, this is Norm. Okay? This is what normal looks like. This is
Savagery.
This is what is, if he winks at you, it's a problem. But normal is one smooth, long sausage-shaped piece of feces. Okay, so he comes out in the shape of your intestine. This is how it's supposed to look. So this is the guy that you want looking back at you, okay? That's why he's winking at you. He's saying, hey, you're doing all right, okay? This is the next one. This is Mr. Linger, okay? I think this is my favorite. So everybody knows Mr. Linger. He frequently visits porta potties, right? If you've ever gone to a porta potty, you smell Mr. Linger very strongly. Public restrooms, all the time. Now, why does Mr. Linger exist? It's very simple, because when you eat high amounts of fat that don't get digested, everything stays in your intestinal system. Everything stays in your stomach until it can be processed. So your stomach just sits there, and all the foods that are easy to process, fruits and vegetables, they all continue to break down further and further and further, and they start to essentially not putrefy, but they ferment in your system. And so by the time you finally are, now it all comes out and you smell that putrefaction. Okay? So that's why there's such a strong association, no pun intended, with, people that generally are larger, and you see them come out of a restroom, and this is what's happening. It's that putrefaction. It's inefficient digestion. Okay, that's the point. Inefficient digestion. You guys ready for the next one? Okay. This is Louie Louie. Okay. Jalen came up with this name. I just called him Floater. I couldn't come up with anything better. But so why does Louie Louie exist? Okay, this is again undigested fats. So when you see it floating on the surface of the water, just in a bubble, okay, that's a problem because you can usually see the fats in there, that they're not digested. So again, this is a cue that there's too much fat and too much undigested fat that exists. So he just floats on the surface. It's not supposed to do that. He should sink. Okay, Norm sinks. He goes to the bottom, he winks at you from the bottom, right? Okay, next one here is Streaker. This guy's a little messed up, but you get the point. He streaks things. This is the guy who, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much toilet paper you go through, you just can't get him to go away, right? You just keep wiping and wiping and wiping, and he just keeps smearing and smearing and smearing, and you're like, where does it all come from? Okay? I can say all these things because, just like I have, and I know all you guys have too, you've all experienced these things once in your life. We laugh about it, but everybody in here has had every single one of these happen. You have. Okay? So, you can smirk and laugh all you want to. But Streaker is the one that gets this is why tighty whities don't exist anymore. Right? That's why everybody went to boxers, really, honestly, right? Nobody wears white underwear anymore because of this guy. So we eat the oils, they don't digest, the toilet paper doesn't work, and so he shows up later. And you're like, well, crap. So, okay, next one, this is Flo. Flo's had better days. This is obviously when the body is just trying to get stuff out. It just, something's wrong. You've got obviously diarrhea. Things aren't digesting properly. The body is just trying to purge stuff out and get rid of it as quickly as possible. Whether there's an infection or something that just was not supposed to be eaten, it's going through, it's moving out, just trying to get rid of it. So Flo just... She just goes to not to be identified. Okay, and there's one more left. Okay, does not get a name. This is he that shall not be named. And that's when you see blood. Okay, that's why it doesn't get a name, because when you see blood in the feces, that's not a good sign. That's never a good sign. Okay, now keep this in mind. Do you realize that every time you take a Tylenol or Advil or one of these NSAID medications, that they say you lose up to like around a tablespoon of blood out of your rectum? Every one pill that you take, because of the gastrointestinal bleeding that it causes. So here's a quiz for you. What color is blood after it's been oxidized for a period of time? Black or brown, right? Can you identify it in poo? No, you're not going to see it. So you don't see anything. So you take all this, and right, what I said we are visual people. We pay attention to what we can see. And if we can't see it, well, then it's not a problem. That's why I made all the emojis. You guys aren't going to forget it. You'll be thinking about these forever. You think you're going to be asking me to load. How do I get these on my phone, right? I want to send somebody flow, right? That's like perfect. You think custard was effective? Wait until you send them the thing, right? So this is when you have a lot of blood coming out, right? You're not going to see it unless there's like some kind of rupture or hemorrhage in the intestinal wall. That's when a hemorrhoid, something like that. So by the time you see this, go somewhere. You got to see somebody. I mean, you got to go and find out what's going on, because you can't just be, because when blood and feces mix, what happens? Infection. Okay? So you can't just let that problem go. You've got to get that taken care of. So that's no joke. That's why he's getting your attention. Okay. So on with that. Swine and dine. Okay. Pigs are nature's vacuum cleaners. They're scavengers. Everybody knows that, right? They're like vultures. Who in here eats vultures? Nobody? Come on. A scavenger is a scavenger. Nobody eats vultures. That's surprising. Not really. But you see the point. I mean, these are scavengers. These are animals they're designed to clean up a mess. And oh boy, do they, right? They will eat anything. A vulture doesn't care. It doesn't care how long that raccoon has been dead on the side of the road. Oh, an armadillo, as long as it's cracked open and it can get to the inside, that's good dinner, right? They're there to clean up stuff. Okay? I love when we get to this point, because everybody's like, oh, when did I eat that last? Okay. Fat stores toxins. Everybody knows that, right? Okay, if you don't know how this works, go back and watch my workshop, Big Fat Lie, or any of the other ones that we talk about fat. Fat is there to store toxins. This is probably the biggest finding of the last couple of decades in the research, is that where we used to think fat was just like because you eat too many calories, all the diets that have you counting calories and all that stuff, it's ridiculous, because that's just not the way things work. That's why when we still have patients come in and they're like, I just don't get it. I'm on a diet. I don't eat anything. How is it that I only eat a cup of white rice and yet I still gain weight? I'm in the gym every day and I can't lose weight and all this stuff. And that is all based on that old thought that it's all based on the laws of thermodynamics, that you're putting fuel in and you're burning fuel out, and that's the end of the story. That is not how it works. Fat is there to store toxins. They're toxic depots. Okay, the body puts things that it can't get rid of into fat tissue to push it away from what? Internal organs, the things that keep you alive. So if it can't get rid of it, it's got to put it somewhere. So it just pushes it out, pushes it out, pushes it out, and just continues to back it out. Why do you think pigs are so fat? Because they store toxins. All that stuff that goes into their system, they have to put it somewhere. And pigs can have up to 6 inches of fat. That is a huge amount of fat around their bodies. When you look at a pork carcass, it contains about 47% fat. I mean, that's mind-boggling. 47% of that creature is fat. That's unreal. I mean, that is a ton of fat. In a commercially trimmed pork chop, the total fat content is 22.6%. Okay? That might not sound like a big deal, right? Okay? Let's see how that compares. In comparison, the fattiest lean, corn-fed. Is that the healthiest stuff? No. I love how restaurants still, right? You go to a restaurant and they say the finest slice of corn, Kansas corn-fed meat. I'm like, why would you put that on there? That's like saying, our Coca-Cola has the high, the purest grade high fructose corn syrup money can buy. That's not a plus. I want to see grass-fed on a menu. I don't want to see corn-fed. You should be hiding that. You should be ashamed of that. Put it in the closet, right? The fattiest lean corn-fed beef is about 11% fat. What was a pig? 22. So that's half the fat and goes down from there. That's the fattiest piece, is 11%. Okay? Conventional corn and grain-fed chicken is only about 3% fat. That's a tremendous difference. Now you talk about getting into grass-fed and pasture-raised chickens. It's a whole different ballgame, right? You're cutting down those amounts probably in half further from there. So now you look at it in more in detail. Cows have 4 compartment stomachs taking 24 hours to. Now you read stuff, and you'll see it on blogs and stuff all over the place. Cows have 4 stomachs. No, they don't. They don't have 4 stomachs. They have 4 compartment stomachs. That's different. That's like saying you have 4 hearts, right? Who in here has 4 hearts? No, but you have a 4-chambered heart, right? Okay, very different story. But nonetheless, just to clear up that technical detail that nobody cared about, stomachs taking 24 hours to digest and purify their diet into tissues. 24 hours, okay? That's a good period of time. That's on par with a human being, okay? But a pig has 1 stomach, just 1 complete system, and digests anything and everything in just 4 hours. Doesn't matter what it is. What do pigs eat?
Anything.
Anything. Let's name some of those things that they've found. They'll eat cancerous tumors of other pigs. They'll eat what?
Humans.
Humans. Farmers get eaten by their pigs. You can look at news articles. I found one that said a farmer goes out to his pigs and never comes back. They'll go out and they'll tell you, if you're around anybody on a farm, they say, do not go in with the pigs. Like, if the hogs are hungry, they'll find your pocket watch later. That's about it. They'll eat anything. They are not necessarily nice creatures. Okay? When they're hungry, they eat. That's what they do. They'll even eat. There was a study done, and I talked about this one time. You guys brought it up the other day. Never eat the pig on the top, right? They did a study where they put pigs in cages and pens stacked on top of each other. And they only fed the one on the top. All the pigs stayed alive. Figure it out, right? So they will eat anything to stay alive. That's basically all they're designed to do, is just clean stuff up. And they do a good job of cleanup. That's why they put them on farms. Let them clean up all the debris and stuff, right? Finished pigs, but do you know pigs are now the number 1 consumed meat on the planet? Number one, by far. Why is that? Because they grow so fast. Well, right? Why is that? Because people eat them. That's most obvious. But it's because they grow so fast. They can be mass-produced very quickly and efficiently because they go from little tiny, to big and fat in a couple months?
Less than a chicken.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, because they can just feed them whatever. Finished pigs, using a typical corn and soybean diet, have about a 14.3 to 1 omega ratio. Now, a normal ratio, a good ratio, we test all of our patients for essential fatty acid balance ratios, right? That's one of the things that, I shouldn't say everybody, but it's an option when you start care, and it's an option for anybody. If you want to do that and you haven't had it done, you can ask me and, we'll give you all those details on it. But the ratio we're looking for is 4 to 1. 4 to 1, okay? When you get up here into 14 to 1, that's called cellular dysfunction. Okay? But this is the typical omega ratio, and your ratio will always match what you eat. Because the more you eat of a certain thing, the more it increases, it affects your overall ratio. Okay? Grain-fed beef tallow, that's again corn and grains, by comparison has an omega ratio of 16.8 to 1. Whereas, so that's not that good, right? Grain-fed, corn-fed beef, that's not good. That's even worse than the pork. But get this, grass-fed have a ratio of 1.5 to 1. Did I just sell the reason why we tell everybody eat grass-fed? And it has to be grass-finished. Okay, know the difference, because some labels are really deceiving, because they'll have a picture on the label will be a picture of grass, and so you think it's grass-fed because it's got grass on the picture, right? But it's not. It can even say organic and everything else on it. I'm thinking of a particular brand that they used to carry at Target. And So they make you think that it's grass-fed, but it's really not. It's still grain and corn-fed. And so you have to see grass-finished. In other words, know your source. Know where you're getting it from. Okay? Whole Foods, the white oak pastures, that's what we use next door also. That's good stuff. It's, they use the same stuff as we do. It's all grass-finished. Hastings is who we used to use, and unfortunately, I don't think they're producing anymore. But this is becoming more and more in demand, and the more that we demand it, the more that will be supplied. So all of a sudden, farmers are starting to realize, hey, people are willing to pay for this stuff. They're willing to buy it. They're not just looking at price anymore as the reason for buying. Because when you look at a package of regular beef and you look at a package of grass-fed beef, there's a difference. But when you realize, when I start eating this stuff, I start eating less because it's packed with more nutrients, and nutrient load is what causes me to be hungry in the first place, then it starts to balance out as time goes on. Make sense? Okay. But looking at this, have you ever really stopped and looked at, just looked at a raw piece of pork? Just looked at, okay? Look at the marbling in that, and look at just even the red meat. Look at the fat, the greasiness of all the tissues, and you just immediately can see this looks nothing like venison. This looks nothing like a healthy cow. There's no muscle fiber here. It's basically fat. That's because it's, as 47% fat by weight. Okay, and that is a thick piece of fat. Organic pork is a laughable oxymoron. No matter, it's still loaded with toxins, as it can have 30 times more toxins than beef or venison. 30 times. Where do those toxins have to go? Is it necessarily about the fat? No. It's you are what you eat. So all the toxins that the pig is eating, and can the farmers really promise you that those pigs are eating nothing but grains or whatever? No, they're eating anything they can get their mouth around. They're cleaning up after each other in the pens. What are they? And living in solitary confinement? What feed house have you seen that has all the pigs in their own little room? It just doesn't happen. So you're getting all of those toxins that are being reprocessed and put back in there. Yes, you can cook pork at high enough temperatures to kill most of the Yersinia enterocolitica, it calls enterocolitis, Tinea solium, those are worms, Trichinella spiralis, this is what causes trichinosis, which is in a vast amount, probably about, they say 70% of store-bought pork. Other parasitic worms, parasites, and if they're not living, at least they're cysts and they're eggs. They say that they're contaminating about 70% of store-purchased pork. That's a big Boston butts. Do you still want it? Right? There's when I was looking at all this stuff, grossing out my kids, I saw, and I didn't put any videos into this because, if you're really that curious, you can go and look. But, there's some neat little tests that you can do. Like you go and buy a package of pork chops from the store, take the pork chops and put them onto a plate. And they look good in the package, right? But you put them onto a plate, pour some Coca-Cola over the top of it. And then every 30 seconds or so, put another splash of Coke on top of it. 30 seconds or so, put another splash on. What will happen is the worms inside of the pork, they don't like the acid from the Coke. Even worms realize, hey, this stuff ain't good. All right? So they start to come up out of the pork. And you can actually start grabbing them with tweezers and pulling them out. There was another worst of the worst scenario video that we were watching, that horrifying. My boy's trying my best to give them nightmares. This is how we get them not to eat stuff. Of a surgery where they were taking an intestine of a guy, and they pull his intestine open, and then they slice it open, they reach in and they start pulling out just piles of worms, round worms, tapeworms this big, just pulling them out, just over and over. filled a plate this big of worms out of this guy's intestines. Jalen's like, how is he not dead? I'm like, well, he's been feeding himself too. He just didn't realize he was feeding worms also. You know, you just have to eat a lot more, right? You wonder why you're hungry and why you still feel malnourished. It's because I did see another study that was very interesting. I wish I actually had these, but back in the day, I didn't think actually save these because somebody might want to read them for fact later. But they did a study where they looked at they swabbed the toilets of Jewish households and other people's households, right? And what do you know about Jewish people? They don't eat pork, okay? And so when they swabbed the toilets in the Jewish households, they didn't find any trichinosis. But when they swabbed the toilets of other pork-eating households, they found it in every pot. Every bowl it was in there. It's contaminating all of them. Because it's in 70%. So if you're eating it, you're getting it. Okay? And yes, you can cook it high enough, but you watch any of those TV shows. I don't like let my boys watch the TV shows on the Food Network and stuff where they're cooking pork and talking about all it's pork. Everything is pork because it's the number one thing that we eat. I mean, don't those ribs look good, right? You see what I'm doing here is I'm talking about all the nasty stuff while this picture is up here. You like that? Your associations. I'm playing you guys, right? So I don't like watching those shows because they're all talking about handling and don't keep the pork in the same place as all the other stuff. Yet they're cooking all these gourmet dishes with it and stuff. And it's like you're really not even supposed to have it in your refrigerator with fruits and vegetables and stuff because it'll contaminate other stuff. We just got to think about this. This isn't food. This is scavenger. These are here for cleanup. Okay, oils, other oils. I'm done with pigs. Hopefully you guys are done with pigs too. So fats are categorized as saturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and polyunsaturated fats. Those are the three different kinds of fats that oils break down into. Okay, PUFAs, polyunsaturated fats, are chemically unstable, making them much more vulnerable to oxidation. Okay, so they're not saturated like butter or coconut oil. So because they're not saturated, they don't hold up as well. They just break down and they're much easier to damage and break down. Oxidized fats, we now know, is the cause of inflammation. Okay, so do the math here. If you're eating lots of polyunsaturated fats and they're being oxidized, you get inflammation. What is like the telltale link between cancer and heart disease and fibromyalgia and arthritis and basically every other human disease of the 21st century?
Inflammation.
It's not bacteria and viruses. It's not any of that stuff. It's inflammation is the link, is the key. Other than neurotoxins, that's another big category too. But inflammation and neurotoxins are probably the two biggest factors that are affecting us now. So U.S. consumption of polyunsaturated fatty acids has dramatically increased from about 3% of your total calories in 1909 to about 8% in 1999. Okay? Think about that for a second. 8%. That's not a small amount of a plate. I mean, if you take a plate of food, that is not a small amount. 8% is noticeable. Okay? If 8% of the people in this room were not wearing clothes, would you notice? Right? It is a very noticeable number. So, we've got to knock this down. We've got to figure out what's going on here. But it's all of these oils, okay? And how they're able to burn. So here's a little home experiment for you. I didn't have time to do this because this is a time-dependent experiment. But oxidation of your cooking oils. And I want you to see what oxidation does to the oils that you're using to cook with. Okay? So who in here exclusively cooks with coconut oil?
And butter.
Okay, so not that many of us though. Okay? So, I won't make you raise your hands, but, if you still have Crisco or safflower oil or, you know, some of these other oils that you cook with occasionally. Here's what I want you to do when you go home tonight, okay? Everybody participate in this. This is awesome, okay? This is really an eye-opening experience. Take a little plate, right? Like a little plastic plate. You can get them at the Dollar Tree for probably a whole pack, you know. Take a little plate and pour some oil on the top of it and set it outside, okay? And just leave it on your porch for the next week, okay? And do that with all the different oils. Label them so you remember which ones are which, right? And set those plates out on your porch, line them up. What you'll find is that the coconut oil really doesn't do anything. It sits there and you can pour it out just like it came out of the jar. Completely stable, no problem at all. But this stuff called canola oil, you guys all know what that is, right? Okay? Canola oil, it's a freak of nature. It's not even, it's not a food. We think that because it was made from something natural somewhere along the way that it's still a food. That's like saying drugs are natural, right? Because somewhere along the line, some scientists took a natural component from a real thing and chemically manipulated it into becoming something else. And, well, you know, come on, drugs are good for you. Allies, that's good for you. Come on. You know, it came from nature.
Like cigarettes, they come from poppy, or some drug comes from like
tobacco.
poppy.
Yeah, well, poppy is opium. Opiates, right? That's a good example. So opiate drugs, of course, hey, they're good for you, right? That's what we thought until last year. Now it's like the #1 topic in healthcare.
Or even aspirin was originally derived from what was a natural tree bark.
Yeah.
But now we chemically manufacture
White willow bark, yeah. So Salagesic, right? You know, we look at all these different things and we see the problems when you mess with nature, okay? So canola, freak of nature. It actually comes from a plant called rapeseed. Okay, they had to change the name because that wasn't appealing. Okay, so it comes from rapeseed, and the process. If you want to see how this is made, this. You literally here. You ready for this? Look up how it's made. Canola. The show actually did one on canola, and they show this process. And of course, they talk in the video about how this stuff is healthier than olive oil and all this stuff. That's how they had to get. That's probably what they had to say in order to get into the factory to see how this crap is made. Right, so the canola, like, it comes from a seed that you would never eat in itself, and definitely not in that quantity. And they press it and smash it and grind it between wheels, and then squeeze it and pressurize it, and then distill it. And then once it's all said and done, and they pulled all this wax out that they sell to the soap companies, and they take this what do they call it? The canola cakes. That's all the mashed fiber, and they go and they feed that to the cows that you're getting on your plate at the steakhouse. You know, after they do all of that stuff, hey, it's efficiency, right? How else are we going to feed all these people? Real foods, you say? Come on, give me a break. Then they have to take the oil and they have to deodorize it because it smells so awful nobody would ever touch it. Like worse than the most rancid butter you've ever smelled. So they have to deodorize it with chemicals and bleach it to make it somewhat palatable. Okay? So take all those oils and put it out there because you'll see that after a week, the canola oil oxidizes so much that don't stick your finger in it. You take a popsicle stick and you put it in there, it'll look like resin, like sap. Just like glue coming off the plate that will stick to everything. Now you take that and you think, what does this indigestible garbage do in your system as it's being oxidized through the digestive process? Ding, 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 exactly the same thing. It goes in and it does the same thing as it does sitting outside. Okay, so we wonder why this stuff is clogging up our pipes. And, you know, when we look at the microvilli, that's important because how can you absorb nutrients if that brush border is all clogged up with those rancid oils? It can't. So it's not just a matter now of is it palatable, is it edible, is it digestible? It's now, does it allow you to operate and function as a human being? Because if you can't absorb the nutrients that you are eating because you're clogging it up with all this stuff and you've been clogged up for decades, no wonder you're sick. Because your system is sick, right? Okay, so try that out. Take all the oils that you have, sesame oil and all those things, and just see what happens. You'll be surprised. Because some things that we think are healthy, this is safflower oil, for example. This has got to be peanut oil. It's got to be better. Just see what happens.
What about olive oil?
See what happens. Oil is natural, at least, and a good quality olive oil. Now you got to be careful.
Right, exactly.
You got to be careful because a lot of times they'll label it olive oil, and it's actually half canola oil.
Yeah.
So if it's real olive oil, all they do is just press olives, and that's the oil that's left over. That's the good stuff. It should be cloudy and in a dark glass container. Like, those are requirements because they're trying to eliminate oxidation. But it's not as stable as coconut oil. It's not. We still eat it, but you don't want to cook with it because it has a relatively low smoke point, so it's going to degrade and oxidize a lot easier than coconut oil is.
What about grapeseed?
Grapeseed, we'll cover that one too. It's actually in this the last slide. I want to cover some of that stuff. Okay. So the two main types of PUFAs are omega-3 and omega-6s. Okay, you guys have all heard this. This is the ratio that we look at. This is what they break down into. Ideal 3-6 ratio is about 4-to-1 or less, but the average person is now over 10-to-1. That is disastrous. That is not good, okay? You need that number low for your cells to operate. When it gets up that high, that's too much. Okay, so when you're cooking your food in this, or at least what we call food, right? This is driving up that omega ratio because that is pure PUFA. So that's funny. I don't know why that's funny, but that's funny. It sounds like you're making your PUFA. So now we're going to do a little experiment just to show you. This is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this online. There's some videos on here. You might want to sit back. This is the Twinkie versus the torch. Have you guys ever seen this before? Okay, this is fascinating. You guys have all seen a Twinkie, right? This is what we Americans call food.
They still have them.
I know they still have them, but it's not quite like they used to be. Okay, I just found this out that the U.S. government. I feel like I'll tell you, this is funny. This is how I am with Twinkies. There's certain things, especially guys, when your wife has sent you in to buy something and you can't wait to get out of the store, right? Yeah, it was like that with me buying Twinkies. I'm walking in and I'm like, God, I hope nobody sees me. I went to the self-checkout line just so I didn't have to face anybody. So, I feel like I need to have gloves on to touch these things. It's strange. But they have a mandate where in 2018, starting in mid-2018, they will not be allowed to have trans fats in certain foods anymore. But there's a loophole in it. It says that you have to have less than 0.5 gram of trans fats or less, right? 0.5 gram or less. So, they say on here, it'll say in the nutrition facts, you see on here, it says 0 grams of trans fats. But when you look on the label, it says vegetable shortening, hydrogenated oils. If something says hydrogenated oils in it, it's trans fats. Okay, that's just the way it is. It's there, even though it says 0 grams of trans fats. That's just something that they lobbied and they got passed. So, what we know about trans fats is they don't burn. They can't burn. They don't go anywhere. They go into your system and then they just sit there and they don't do anything. Okay, so that stuff just goes into your system and it clogs up. And so the point of this little experiment here is to show you that if you can't destroy something with a blowtorch, I mean, Does somebody want to give me their pants? Let's see if that works, right? I could probably destroy your pants. But let's see what happens when we put a Twinkie up against a blowtorch. It's a space shuttle! Look at that. The oil's just bounces right off.
Maybe we need to make a special one.
You know, the Mythbusters actually did a show on this. Can a Twinkie be burned? They did a show on this. No joke. And guess what their conclusion was?
Nope.
No, you can't. You know, of course, they scientized it and said that it's because we're cooking now. It's
Meaning well, Mike. Meaning well.
Smell something burning. Their conclusion was I guess, I mean, look at that. You're right on it, and it just doesn't do anything. Okay? Their conclusion was, well, it only has 6 burnable, combustible components in it.
Out of how many?
Out of something like 26 in the show. Okay, well, I think we've had enough. You fared okay. Looks appetizing, doesn't it? Now, what's really interesting about this,
It's like a marshmallow.
okay, is check this out. It's not even, I mean, it's not even hot. Look how hard that is.
Wow.
The when you burn the oils inside. I know I'm passing the back row. Yeah, the cream filling in the Mythbusters episode, it said at the bottom that the cream filling, when it burned, it basically just turned into a rock. It just turned into a rock of unknown. So anyhow, you know, I did this here so you guys didn't have to try it at home. Okay, we did have a fire extinguisher ready, you know, so the safety commission approved this this experiment. All right, so this last slide, this goes through the polyunsaturated content of all the different oils that I could find information on. Now, this is the 21st century, okay? We should be able to find this information easier. Look at all the data that's missing from here. I mean, I just simply could not find this. And I'm like, after a certain period of time, I mean, after I look for a couple of hours, and I've already spent 12 or 14 hours putting together a workshop and making sure everything is there, I'm sorry, I'm not going to spend 2 more hours looking for the 6:3 ratio of a thing that is not even food, right? It probably doesn't have a ratio because who knows? So, but what I want you to see here is the content of here, and some of these things you think are good, right? Like safflower oil. I mean, that's natural, right? If we see that something's cooked in safflower
It's
oil.
all in organic foods too.
Yeah, it's all over the place. You know, safflower, it's got to be better than Crisco. I mean, it's got to be better than hydrogenated oils. But look at the polyunsaturated content, 75% pure omega-6s. If you eat this stuff, the omega-6-3 ratio, which is why it's in red, is 78:1. You are destroying your ratio. Now, why is that? Well, think about this for a second. If you look at a safflower, okay, anybody know what a safflower is? I mean, have you ever seen one? Have you ever eaten one out of a grocery store? No, you haven't. That's because it's just a plant that you would never consume. Like you would never just go and, and eat this thing and be like, oh, this is good and nutritious and I'm getting all my oils from it. But they find plants that they can extract stuff from and they can make money off of it, and they just find a way to make money off of it. And they tell you that it's good because it's natural. Okay? Same thing, sunflowers. I mean, who in here eats sunflower seeds? They're good, right? I mean, if you eat the seed, but how many sunflower seeds do you have to destroy in order to make sunflower oil. You would never eat that many seeds, would you? Okay, so when you eat the oil, your omega-6-3 ratio is 71 to 1. So any of the ones that are in the red, you obviously want to avoid. Now, let's look at the flax seed oil, right? I mean, flax is 66% polyunsaturated fatty acids. Poofa, right? But the 6-3 ratio is 0.2 to 1. Why is that? How is that possible? Because what are the two components of polyunsaturated fatty acids? Omega-3s and omega-6s. So yes, it's got a huge percentage of omega fatty acids, but they're not omega-6s. They're 3s. So the ratio is upside down. So that's why it gets a green.
So which is
there.
the bad one? Omega-3s?
Omega-3s are good. Omega-6s are not.
Okay.
Omega-3s are typically natural. That's EPA, DHA, which, by the way, EPA and DHA are critical to function, but EPA in specific, it is one of the only substances known to man that affects both the COX and LOX pathways of pain modulation in the body, right? They have, who in here has heard of COX-2 inhibitors, right? Drugs, right? They create these drugs to block pathways as pain relievers. But fish oils are the only one, EPA is the only one that blocks both. And it does it effectively. And it's used now to pull people out of comas because it rebuilds the brain and the nervous system. I mean, it's unbelievable how your brain, babies' brains, dendritic spines are created by DHA consumption during pregnancy. I mean, that's why, have you ever heard of pregnancy brain, moms? That's because the baby is an effective parasite. They steal all of your DHA. And if you're short, you'll feel the effects because it's gone. Cod liver, same thing. It's 23% PUFA, but its ratio is 0.2 to 1. Okay, beef tallow. Look at the difference there again. You know, we had that one 1.5 to 1 to 16.8 to 1. What's the difference there? Grass-fed, very good. Okay, ghee, that's butter oils, condensed butter oils. So they take the fat out of there. It's just the oils. That's 2% PUFA, but its ratio is only 3 to 1. That's good to use. Coconut is only 1.9% polyunsaturated fat because what is it almost entirely?
Saturated fat.
Saturated fat. Very good. So, of course, the ratio, you really can't even find it because it's 91% saturated fat and only 2% is omega. Okay? So you look at all these other ones. Now, some of the other ones we want to look at is the amount of trans fats. Shortening, Crisco, 12.2% trans fat. Holy smokes. Okay? Margarine. I hope you guys don't still use margarine. Even when you go to restaurants, right? We make excuses when we go to restaurants. Do you really think about? Yes?
What is margarine?
I love that. That's my kid.
People
And
should
he's
put it
12.
People should
yeah.
put it on their plates experiment and use it too to see that nothing happens.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you can put it on the ground next to some real butter. Put it on the ground next to some real butter, and guess what will come and get it? Ants, right? Ants will come and get the real butter, but will they touch margarine? No. Even though ants are smart, they know don't touch that stuff. What is margarine? It's that stuff. I'm going to throw ourselves under the bus here because guess what? We go out to eat sometimes too. So when we go to the hibachi steakhouse and they take out that pan of what looks like butter, but I can't believe it's not butter. They take that and they put that on there. That's margarine. Okay? And that is 26% trans fats, which is completely undigestible and clogs your arteries and makes you fat. Clogs your intestines and makes you fat. Clogs your whole system and robs you of existence. Canola is 4.6% trans fats, but it's healthier than olive oil, right? Unbelievable. GMOs, this is a big issue too. Corn, 88% of the corn in the United States is genetically modified. 90% of the soy in America is genetically modified, and 87% of the canola is genetically modified, which means we don't really know the grain experiments, right? And then soy, which is vegetable oil, okay, your common vegetable oil that they use to fry food. I'm not going to say the name, I don't want to, but I'll let somebody else, they can come after you, right? All those other places, they use this to cook oil, to cook all their fried chicken and everything else. And, a fresh batch of oil is actually more stable. But the minute that it starts breaking off pieces of chicken batter and all that, the smoke point goes lower. So when you see those vats in those fast food restaurants and they're smoking, trans fats, baby, trans fats. And you're getting all that in there. When you go to the Mexican restaurant and they bring out the plate of chips and they're all covered in grease, trans fats, baby. That's what all that is. Every restaurant out there, except for one that I know, uses that stuff. We use coconut oil exclusively. So this soy is a protease inhibitor. And what is that? That's an enzyme that breaks down foods. So you're actually inhibiting digestion even further, making the whole system even go more off kilter. According to Mary Hennig, PhD and author of Know Your Fats, the more hydrogen atoms in a fatty acid, the more heat stable it is. Saturated fats such as butter and coconut oil are fully saturated with hydrogen atoms and are therefore the most heat stable. They will not oxidize, become rancid during cooking or sitting outside in the sun for a week. That is critically important no matter what the information in the news says out there. That's the most important thing, is that you're not oxidizing your oils. Yes? No? Okay. All right, so upcoming events. I want to invite everybody here to Dr. Kelly is going to be doing Healthy Homemakers this Thursday. Yes? Okay, so this Thursday, and it's here. Okay, so do we know a topic? Food prep. Okay, so if you guys are available and you want to come to that, the whole point of this stuff is plug in. Now, Healthy Homemakers, it used to be like Max Moms back in the day, but it was like, really it needs to be more than just moms. It's anybody, so if you're making a home, male or female, old or young, doesn't matter, mom or not, you come and it's just good information. Just helping to continue pushing that lifestyle, the positive lifestyle changes forward. The next thing is the CCC dinner. That is, do we know a date on that? August the 7th. Thank you, Daniel. August the 7th, the CCC dinner. Who in here has been to one of those in the past? Awesome. Okay, we got a lot of hands. Guys, the whole point in the CCC dinner is this. Who in here has talked to a friend about chiropractic? I better see those hands, right? Okay, yeah. We talk to our friends. How many of us are effective at talking to our friends into? Yeah. It's difficult, right? Why is that? Because, people don't want to fix things until it's broken. So when they're hurt, they're going to come asking. There's also the thing that they got told by their grandma. Right? Or by their medical doctor, or the thing they heard on the internet or on TV and stuff like that. There's all these reasons why they're not listening to you. Okay? So we identified this a long time ago. It was like, you know what, you guys, we are glad that you're here, and we don't want to put all that baggage on you to try to sell something that this is what we do for a living. Right? That's what we do, is we know all the facts so that you don't have to. So we make it easy. Who in here likes to eat? Yeah. And who in here likes stuff that's free? Right? So when you kind of put those two together, eat and free, people show up, and it makes it easy. So who in here, it's a lot easier to sell, hey, I want you to come to dinner with me. And it's free. My doctor's putting on an educational dinner. And I really think you'll enjoy it. How much easier is that than saying, hey, you should really go to a chiropractor because, the power that made the body heals the body, the nervous system, blah, 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 blah. Hey, you guys don't have time for that, seriously. So we can answer their questions and everything, and hey, it's free. So we made that just super easy. So be looking for opportunities, though, because how many of your friends and family need to be under chiropractic care? You know they do. But it's just a matter of them making that commitment. And it's not their fault, they just don't know. If they knew, we always say this, if they just knew, everybody would be under chiropractic care. If they just knew. Well, and if healthcare was free, everybody would be under chiropractic care. Unfortunately, neither of those are ever going to happen, but it is up to us to educate them. So bring them to the CCC dinner if you guys aren't signed up for that or haven't brought somebody or you got somebody that you can bring. Invite them along. We'd love to have a full house for that one. The next one, the workshop, do not know the topic yet, but the next workshop is August 14th. Dr. Kelly will be teaching that one. If you guys have not gotten on our YouTube channel yet, you know that you can create an account simply with an email and you can subscribe, and then every time that we load the next workshop on, you'll get an email notification that new workshop is available. All of them are on the website too, so you can go on there and you can look all those up.
If you turn on notifications.
If you turn on notifications, otherwise you won't be notified.
That makes sense.
That's valuable information. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do is the raffle. Okay, so you guys all have a raffle ticket, right? Did everybody get a raffle ticket? If you did not, now is your only chance to be known. Okay? All right, so...
You're not giving away that Twinkie.
I'm not giving away the box either. I would never do that to you. Nobody gets that. If I see it, I know there should be 8 in there because I burned one earlier. So if one's missing, I'm finding out who did it. No, the raffle for tonight, everybody in here got a ticket. We're going to give away a copy of Jordan Rubin's book, The Great Physician's Prescription for Health and Wellness. Okay? And a jar that everybody can use.
I use that for I use it on my skin, but I don't
Yeah. Well, this is the expeller press stuff for cooking. We, of course, if you guys don't know the difference, and this is important just so you don't get shocked by purchasing one, we keep the virgin coconut oil here. That tastes like coconut. Okay, so you'll have everything that you cook tasting like coconut. The expeller pressed does not have a taste. This we keep over at Red Ball. Okay, so we keep them separate so you guys know and don't accidentally buy the wrong stuff. Okay, so this is the cooking stuff. $15 I think for this, normally, and then a $10 book. So everybody have their ticket? The number is 391930. Hey! All right. All right.
Congratulations.
Does anybody have any questions before we cut? Yes.
Peanut oil.
Peanut oil.
Was that on there? I didn't see it.
Yes, it was. Peanut oil.
There it is.
There it is.
Right here.
4.1.
33% polyunsaturated fatty acids. 34 to 1. 6-3 ratio.
Not to mention GMO.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't find that one either. Other question.
The grapeseed oil, that's in the Maximize Living book. It's one of the oils to use.
It is.
Oops.
Yeah, we need to just go in there with our marker and.
Yeah.
Just rip that page out.
Yep.
I thought it was okay, but
That's just not a new one.
I'm gonna see if Costco will take it back.
But you can take it and put it on a plastic plate and set it outside. So if anybody needs any, she's got a whole jar to experiment.
I do remember that in the book, but I remember when I went through the book, you told me not to use grapeseed or any of the really bottled oils. They all go rancid on the shelf much faster than a person would think.
I don't remember that, but I'm glad I told you.
Probably amongst my million questions.
I don't remember a lot, so, yes.
Maybe more than you want to cover here, but you talk about pigs and being the scavengers and all that. What about shellfish?
Same category. I didn't cover that here because, it's more in line with fats, and the fat content of a pig is more than your body can handle. You cannot handle the fat content. It's too much. That's why so many people get their gallbladders and everything taken out, because there's just too much fat in the diet. So the first thing that's got to go is pigs. No matter, it doesn't matter if you're eating kosher or not. It's just not good for the human body. Okay, no matter how they wrap it or sell it. Shellfish, same thing. They're bottom feeders. They're scavengers. They're cockroaches of the ocean. I get into that quite intensely as well in the owner's manual. So if you really want to know, get on and watch that video, and I'll give you all that stuff. But yeah, we haven't eaten pork or shellfish voluntarily in probably 8-9 years, something like that. I mean, you of course, we live in a culture where it's everywhere, so you involuntarily get it somewhere. And if you guys eat at restaurants, you're involuntarily getting canola oil all the time. All the time. Probably daily.
Almost everything is processed.
Yep. So probably about 8% of your diet is polyunsaturated fats. Any other questions? No other questions?
So you use coconut oil for cooking?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
can fry it.
Open
Yep.
next door?
You can even fry it. Yeah.
You can like deep fry
Are
it.
they open next door? No, they closed an hour ago.
You can deep fry it, like you want to do fries or something like
Yep.
that.
It's stable. It's heat stable up to, I think, 450 degrees. So, of course, it's expensive to fry in it. So, I mean, you don't want to. I had never heard of a fried turkey when I moved down here.
We fry everything in the South.
I'm like, you fry a whole turkey? How do you have? Oh, you got a kettle this big. Oh my gosh. But I mean, I remember growing up having my mom would have the, sorry mom, again. I would have the crock pot would be sitting in the cupboard, and it would be full of oil, and you would just see that grease inside the crock pot that would be pulled back out and turned on, and it would all liquefy again and heat up and cook the next stuff.
Put that in the cupboard?
Yeah.
Put it in the fridge.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to keep it in the cast iron skillet in the oven.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just
That's what
use
Southern
it.
people do.
Do you use the coconut oil over, or is it one time?
It's stable.
So you like the deep fryer, you can leave it in there for a period of time and then use it. Well,
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, exactly. It depends on what you're cooking in it. Here's my suggestion. If you're going to fry something, make it something that you can fry in a shallow pan, that you use small amounts. We just really don't have any business, anything that you require a big vat to fry in, you got to argue, really, should that be eaten? I mean, French fries and tater tots, and I mean, you can easily replace tater tots with hash browns. That you just grease a skillet with some coconut oil and cook hash browns in. We do that all the time. But that's definitely better than than having fried chicken strips. You can bread chicken and pan fry. And it takes very little. So you just got to work around and just learn different methods.
I have air fryers.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great cooking workshop.
Max, healthy homemakers. Maybe she can talk about that. You guys can come and ask questions like that. All right. Any other questions?
It amazes me how much data is missing. Why you think, especially the training stuff, that's why there's so much missing.
What my opinion is, and it might be out there. It might be out there.
So why
But-
is it so hard to find?
Here's what this is how I feel about it, and this is what I think the answer is. Because where does this data come from? Research. Who funds research?
The company who makes it.
Those making the money off the research. Everybody knows that, right? That every study that you see out there, that's for studying a drug or studying this disease or something, all of that stuff is funded in order to create a product from it. They're all after money. Otherwise, who's going to pay for it? One of the biggest things, chiropractic research, right? That's one of the biggest things that the medical community has always put against chiropractic is, well, there's no research. You guys don't have research like we do. We have tons of research. Why don't you guys have research? Well, there is. I think most everybody says the same thing. Every time you go into Whole Foods, we run into like 10 different people there. Like, I'm never going into Whole Foods on a bad hair day, right? Because you're always going to run into somebody. Okay, always. That was actually funnier when I never had any hair. But I'm realizing now I have hair. It's not funny. But you always run into people because we're in a very like-minded community. And I love that. If you guys chat with other people here, because you'll never know what you learn from each other. I mean, most people that are patients here are weird. That's true.
Yeah.
In terms of the world, most people here are weird.
We don't shop at Walmart.
We don't shop at Walmart. We shop at Whole Foods. We shop at Fresh Market, stuff like that. We eat differently. We live differently. We deodorize differently. We wash our clothes with homemade soaps. That's just the way that people tend to be around here. You may not do all those things. That's fine. I'm just saying, if you want to live better, use the community around you. I mean, you'll just get into conversations. You never know what you're going to learn. Not all of it might be true. I'm just saying, but you never know. Any other questions? Then we'll cut. If you guys have any other questions and that you want to ask afterwards, by all means, let me know. Or you can, if you guys on Facebook or YouTube have any questions, put them in the comments. Outside of that, you guys have a wonderful night. Hope you guys enjoyed something. And we'll have the poo emoji pack ready for download.